I was 12 years old when my parents told me to grow up and find my own way home. I didn't understand what they meant. At 12, I still believed my parents were the two people in the world who would never leave me behind. That belief disappeared in a parking lot on a cold Saturday evening. We had driven nearly 2 hours to visit my aunt in another city. The trip had started normally. Mom had packed sandwiches. Dad had complained about traffic. I had spent most of the drive looking through the window and listening to music. At my aunt's house, everyone seemed happy. We ate dinner. We talked. My cousins joked around. Then I accidentally knocked over a glass of juice. It wasn't a big spill. The glass tipped over when I reached across the table. Orange juice spread across the tablecloth. "I'm sorry," I said immediately. My aunt laughed. "It's okay." But Dad didn't laugh. He stared at me. "Can you ever be careful?" I grabbed some napkins. "I'm sorry." Mom sighed. "You always need someone cleaning up after you." I didn't understand why such a small mistake had suddenly become a huge problem. I said I'm sorry. Dad pushed his chair back. "That's enough." The rest of dinner was uncomfortable. Nobody spoke much. When it was time to leave, I followed my parents outside. The sun had already gone down. The parking lot was almost empty. I walked toward our car. Dad unlocked it. I reached for the back door. He stopped me. "Wait." I looked at him. "What?" He stared at me with an expression I had never seen before. "You need to start growing up." I laughed nervously. "I am." "No, you aren't." Mom walked toward the passenger side. "Your father is right." I looked between them. What did I do? Dad opened the driver's door. "You're 12. You're old enough to figure things out." I frowned. "Figure what out?" He got into the car. I suddenly felt nervous. "Wait." He started the engine. "Where are you going?" He looked at me through the windshield. "Home. I'll come with you." He shook his head. "No." My heart dropped. "What?" Mom rolled down the window. "You need to learn responsibility." "But I don't know how to get home." "You know the neighborhood." "That's not enough." Dad looked away. I ran toward the driver's door. "Please." He didn't answer. I knocked on the window. "Please don't leave me." The car began moving. I ran after it. "Mom." She looked back. For 1 second, our eyes met. I expected her to tell Dad to stop. She didn't. The car turned out of the parking lot. I stood frozen. Then I ran toward the road. "Mom." The car disappeared. I watched the taillights become smaller. Then they were gone. I was alone. Completely alone. I looked around. I didn't know the street name. I didn't know the exact address of my aunt's house. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have money. And I had no idea how I was supposed to get home. I sat on a bench beside the parking lot. Maybe they would come back. I told myself they would. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then 20. Every time a car entered the parking lot, I stood up. Every time, it was someone else. Eventually, tears started running down my face. I tried to stop them. I didn't want anyone to see me crying. But I was 12. And I was terrified. After almost an hour, an elderly woman approached me. She was carrying a shopping bag. "Sweetheart." I looked up. "Are you okay?" I wiped my face. "I'm waiting for my parents." She looked around. "Where are they?" "They went home." "Without you?" I nodded. She sat beside me. "Do you know their phone number?" I shook my head. "What about your address?" "I know the neighborhood." She looked concerned. "What's your name?" "Emily." "Emily, I'm going to help you." She took out her phone. "Do you know where your aunt lives?" I gave her the little information I remembered. She called the police. I started crying harder. "I don't want to get my parents in trouble." The woman gently held my hand. "You're not getting them in trouble. They left you here." "I know. They'll be angry." "That's not your fault." Those words stayed with me. "That's not your fault." Police arrived about 20 minutes later. An officer crouched beside me. "Emily, we're going to find your parents." I nodded. "Are you hurt?" "No." "Are you afraid?" I hesitated, then whispered, "Yes." The officer looked at the woman who had found me, then back at me. "You're safe now." They took me to the station. My parents were contacted. They arrived nearly 3 hours later. I had imagined them running through the doors. I imagined Mom hugging me. I imagined Dad apologizing. Instead, Dad walked into the room looking furious. His first words were, "Do you know what you've put us through?" I stared at him. "I thought you left me. We wanted you to learn a lesson." Mom crossed her arms. "You need to stop acting helpless." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I'm 12. Exactly. You told me to find my own way home." Dad sighed. "You made a scene." I looked at the police officer, then at my parents. Something inside me went quiet. The officer asked me privately, Do you feel safe going home with them? I looked at the floor. I thought about the car driving away. I thought about running after it. I thought about begging them to stop. Then I answered, no. That one word changed my life. I was placed temporarily with my aunt. That night, she made me hot chocolate. She didn't ask me to explain everything. She simply sat beside me. You can stay here. I looked at her. For how long? As long as you need. I cried. Not because I was afraid. Because someone had finally made me feel safe. Over the next few weeks, social workers investigated what happened. My parents insisted it had been a misunderstanding. They called it discipline. They said I was exaggerating. But the police report told a different story. I had been left alone in another city with no phone, no money, and no reliable way home. Eventually, my aunt was given temporary custody. My parents visited twice. The first visit lasted 15 minutes. My father spent most of it talking about himself. You've made this very difficult. My mother said, we're still your parents. I wanted to ask, then why did you leave me? But I stayed silent. After they left, my aunt sat beside me. You don't have to defend them. I don't hate them. I know. I just don't understand. You don't have to understand everything right now. I looked at her. What if they never come back? She squeezed my hand. Then you won't face it alone. Months passed. My parents gradually stopped calling. Their visits became less frequent. Then they stopped completely. At first, I waited. Every time the phone rang, I hoped it would be them. Eventually, I stopped waiting. I focused on school. I joined the debate team. I started working toward college. I learned how to cook, how to budget money, how to fix a flat tire, how to navigate unfamiliar cities. Not because my parents had taught me, because I had decided I would never again be helpless simply because someone else chose not to help me. Years later, when people asked why I wanted to become a social worker, I always gave them the same answer. I know what it feels like when a child thinks nobody is coming. I wanted to be the person who came, the person who listened, the person who said, for 20 years, I believed that leaving my parents behind was the easiest part. It wasn't. The hardest part was learning how to stop expecting them to come back. After that night at the police station, I went to live with my aunt, Linda. She never treated me like a burden. She gave me the small bedroom at the end of the hallway and told me I could decorate it however I wanted. On my first night there, she knocked softly on the door. Are you hungry? I shook my head. She stood there for a moment. You don't have to talk. I looked at her. But you should know something. What? None of this was your fault. I stared at the ceiling. My parents had never said those words. Not once. A week later, I went back to school. Everyone knew something had happened. Children whispered. Teachers watched me carefully. One girl asked, did your parents really leave you? I didn't answer. Another child said, maybe you were bad. That sentence stayed with me. For years. Maybe I had been bad. Maybe I had been difficult. Maybe I really had deserved to be left behind. I was 12. Children believe adults, especially their parents. My aunt noticed that I had stopped asking for things. I wouldn't ask for new shoes. I wouldn't ask for snacks. I wouldn't ask for help with homework. If something broke, I tried to fix it myself. One evening, Aunt Linda found me struggling to repair a broken lamp. Why didn't you tell me? I can do it. I know you can. She sat beside me. But you don't always have to. I looked at her. What if people get tired of helping me? She took my hand. Then the right people will tell you when they need a break. They won't abandon you. I didn't completely believe her. Not yet. But I wanted to. Years passed. I became fiercely independent. I worked after school. I saved money. I learned how to cook. I learned how to repair things. I learned how to handle problems without asking anyone for help. People praised me for being mature. They didn't know where that maturity came from. At 18, I left for college. Aunt Linda cried at the bus station. Call me when you arrive. I will. And don't pretend you don't need anyone. I smiled. I won't. But I still did. I kept everyone at a distance. Friends invited me to parties. I went occasionally. Relationships were harder. Whenever someone became too close, I pulled away. I was terrified that if I needed someone too much, they would eventually leave. Then, during my second year of college, I volunteered at a children's shelter. That changed my life. There was a little boy named Marcus. He was 10. He had been moved between several foster homes. One afternoon, I found him sitting alone. You okay? He shrugged. Everyone leaves. I sat beside him. I know what that feels like. He looked at me. Your parents left too? I nodded. What did you do? I thought about it. I survived. Marcus frowned. That's it. No. I smiled. Then I built something better. He didn't understand. Not yet. But I did. I realized there were thousands of children carrying the same fear I had carried. Children who believed abandonment meant they were worthless. I changed my major. I studied social work. After graduation, I began working with vulnerable children. My career grew quickly. I became a caseworker, then a supervisor. Eventually, I was running programs designed to help children transition into stable homes. Whenever I spoke to a frightened child, I repeated the words my aunt had once told me. None of this is your fault. I said it so often that it became part of who I was. Then, 20 years after the parking lot incident, my phone rang. I almost didn't answer. The number was unfamiliar. Hello. A woman's voice trembled. Is this Emily? I froze. I knew that voice. Mom. There was silence. Then she whispered. Yes. I hadn't heard her voice in years. My first instinct was to hang up. Instead, I asked, why are you calling? Your father is sick. I closed my eyes. How sick? Very. I didn't say anything. We'd like to see you. I almost laughed. After 20 years? We know. You don't get to call me because Dad is sick. I know. Her voice broke. We're not asking you to forget. Then what are you asking? Just one visit. I agreed. Not because I wanted forgiveness. I wanted answers. When I arrived at their house, everything looked smaller. The front porch. The windows. The driveway where I had once played with chalk. My mother opened the door. She looked older. Much older. For several seconds, she simply stared at me. Then she whispered, "You're beautiful." I didn't know how to respond. My father was sitting in the living room. He was in a wheelchair. His hands trembled. When he saw me, his eyes filled with tears. Emily. I stood several feet away. Hi, Dad. He swallowed. I don't know what to say. Neither do I. He looked down. I'm sorry. The room became silent. I waited. For what? His voice cracked. For leaving you. I felt something inside me move. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But recognition. You knew what you were doing. I was angry. You were my father. I know. You drove away. I know. You didn't even look back. He started crying. I've regretted it every day. I looked at him. You should have. My mother began crying too. We were overwhelmed. I shook my head. Then you should have asked for help. We thought you were old enough. I was 12. Neither of them answered. I sat down. You told me to grow up. My father nodded. And I did. I grew up without you. My mother whispered. We never wanted that. But that's what you chose. She covered her face. I looked at them. For years, I had imagined this moment. I thought I would scream. I thought I would demand apologies. Instead, I felt strangely calm. Because the truth was finally out. They had made a terrible decision. It had nothing to do with my worth. It had everything to do with their inability to be the parents I needed. Before I left, my father asked, "Can you forgive us?" I stood at the door. I don't know. He nodded. I understand. But, I paused. I don't hate you anymore. He looked up. That's enough. I walked outside. The evening air was cool. I sat in my car for several minutes. Then I started crying. Not because I wanted them back. Because I finally realized something. That 12-year-old girl had spent 20 years believing she had been abandoned because she wasn't good enough. She had spent years trying to become impossible to abandon. But there was never anything wrong with her. She had simply been a child whose parents failed her. And she had survived. More than that, she had built a life, a career, friendships, a home, a future. She had become the person she once desperately needed. Someone who stayed. Someone who listened. Someone who told frightened children, "You didn't deserve what happened to you." A month later, I received another call from my mother. This time, I answered. She told me my father wanted to see me again. I agreed. Our relationship didn't suddenly become perfect. There were no magical apologies. No erased memories. No pretending that 20 years hadn't passed. But there were conversations. Slow ones. Honest ones. Sometimes painful ones. I learned more about their fears. They learned about the damage their decision had caused. I still kept boundaries. I didn't move back. I didn't become their caretaker. I didn't sacrifice my life to make theirs easier. But I stopped carrying anger everywhere I went. One evening, my mother asked, "Do you ever wish we had come back for you?" I looked at her. Of course. Then why don't you hate us? I thought for a moment. Because I spent enough of my life carrying what you did. I don't want to carry it anymore. She nodded. I reached across the table and held her hand. It wasn't the same relationship we might have had if they had never left me. It couldn't be. But it was something. Something honest. Something chosen. Years later, I still remembered that parking lot. The empty space where their car had disappeared. The fear. The cold. The feeling that my entire world had ended. But now I remembered something else. The woman who stopped. The stranger who called the police. My aunt who opened her home. The teachers who helped me. The people who stayed. They taught me that family isn't always defined by blood. Sometimes family is the person who sees a frightened child alone and decides not to walk away. My parents told me to grow up and find my own way home. I did. It took me 20 years to understand that I had been looking for the wrong thing. I thought home was a place my parents had taken away from me. It wasn't. Home was something I built. And when I finally understood that, I stopped waiting for anyone to come back. I had already found my way home.